That's it, we're live. Hello everybody, thank you all for turning up. Tonight we have Lorence, who I eventually have spelled correctly, and I've changed the title so the title should be spelled correctly. We have Lorence from Milwaukee Atheists here. So Lorence, if you want to just give a wee quick shout out, tell everyone who you are, what you do and all that, and we'll get stuck in.
Alright, thanks for having me on. I am Lorence from Milwaukee Atheists. We do biblical history stuff, generally religious history. My major is religious studies. I'm going to UW Milwaukee right now. I guess that's pretty much the whole spiel. We do that kind of stuff on the channel. A lot of religious history. We try to keep it very scholarly. I found that in the atheist community, this topic is not as seriously considered as it should be. So I decided to take it up a notch.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. If anyone hasn't seen his Forged Fiction series or anything like that, there's a lot of history and where the books of the Bible came from, how they came about, and yeah, all that sort of stuff. You know, all that sort of stuff.
And I would say for the Forged Fiction series, initially for like the first 5 videos, so the Gospels and Acts, I was mostly using information from Carrier, which now there's a decent amount of stuff there that I disagree with. So I would say that those are not exactly as accurate as I'd like them to be. But after that, it's pretty much as scholarly as you can get.
Yeah, I went looking. You definitely have to whack all that together in a playlist. I was going to put the playlist in the description, but it's freaking, there's no playlist. It's all videos, separate videos.
Oh, I mean, I do have a playlist on the channel, actually.
Actually, I looked, couldn't see one. Oh, wrong button. I'm not going to look now, obviously, because I will clone this screen. But yeah, no, definitely. As I said to you before we come on, Lorence, I've been following you for a while. The information that the man puts out is very good. If any of the videos, at least 3 or 4 books are referenced during the videos. There's always backups for his backups, and yeah, very, very well researched. Definitely well researched.
Yeah, in fact, one of my colleagues, Chris, he's the guy in the back doing all the camera and audio stuff. He's also the disembodied voice you hear sometimes on Atheist Sunday School. He wants to do a series on saints and holy relics, which I think is a really good idea. But I told him to at least use 5 sources. I will not accept a script that does not use at least 5 sources.
See, that's exactly my point. Yeah, if you want it well researched and information on where this, that, and the other came from in reference to the Bible, definitely give a check out for Milwaukee Atheists. So that sort of covers my usual first point here. The first question I usually ask Lorence is, what brought you to YouTube? You know, why are you here on YouTube doing your thing?
Yeah, so the YouTube story, that one goes back over 10 years now. I initially started YouTube, I think in 2009, and I was, just some teen looking to make some funny videos on YouTube. It didn't really take off, which is okay. I was, back in the day when you could post on somebody's channel as like a public message.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah,
You,
yeah. And I didn't know of YouTube back then, but I've heard of reference to it. Yes.
Yeah, really, classic OG YouTube. And in those days, I was just doing like those sub for sub things because everyone, they would post that on the biggest channel at the time, which was Fred. That's how long ago this was. So we would post, sub for sub, and someone would subscribe to you, and then you would subscribe to them, and it just went that way. And it never really did anything other than raise a subscriber count.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, I was already an atheist when I started doing that, but my videos had nothing to do with that. Eventually, I, started watching The Amazing Atheist. I started watching Thunderfoot, all those other OG YouTube atheists, and it inspired me to make stuff as well. Now, my old stuff is not very good. Most of it doesn't exist anymore, and I'm really happy about that. But it was just not good at all. But at least got me into the game, and I enjoyed making videos. I enjoyed talking about these subjects, but it was all the same stuff kind of rehashed. And eventually, in I think 2015, when I was, maybe in 2014, I started getting back into activism. I kind of took a break for a few years, and I started getting back into that, and I was contacted by Mythicist Milwaukee. Now, there's a huge story that goes behind that, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
We might get into it later, but either way, they asked me and Milwaukee Atheists to join them in setting up these conferences about religions, mythicism, secularism, all that stuff, and I was totally in support of it. And at the conference, we were really in the weeds for this. We were very front. Yeah, we were. I wouldn't say we were like the bosses, but we were partially organizers.
Yes.
We were helping them out. So, we got to meet a lot of cool people. We got to meet Arthur George and Richard Carrier, David Fitzgerald. We got to meet Killa Priest, which was neat. So, after the conference, or actually at the conference, I bought Richard Carrier's book On the Historicity of Jesus, and at the time, I was really convinced by it. I thought it was really good, and I thought it was super interesting. So it got me down this road of biblical scholarship and actually trying to understand where the text came from, what they meant in their original historical context, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, for about a year now, or almost a year now, I haven't really accepted the mythicist position. So my position from when I started making these videos has changed on the historical Jesus. But if I told you that Richard's work didn't have a profound influence on me, I would be lying, because it most certainly did. So I got into a much more scholarly discourse, and I really enjoy how it's went. It's not, as cutthroat as the old days of YouTube atheism, and that's okay, because I actually want to have discussions, and I want to have some serious scholarly engagement on these things. And although it is, I will admit, a lot drier and kind of boring, I think for me personally, it's a super interesting field, and I am very glad that I got into it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go so far as saying that, man. I find your videos very enjoyable. It's, there's pictures and the information's there, and they're not jumping up and down, and they're not freaking, it's not movie quality, but I find them very entertainment. I do. I find them very, and as you said, the actual topic is very interesting. And not that I could retain all the knowledge. I was trying to think the day, and there's probably only about 3 or 4 of your videos that the history part that I can definitely recall with confidence. But having that knowledge there, knowing that it is available to go and check, to go and resource, definitely. No, very, very interesting.
Yeah, that was at least in part the reason that I started this, because so many of the resources on this are, they're expensive. First of all, some of the books, of course, over the years, I've, made enough money where I can buy some of these,
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to put it in such a way that the layman can understand it. But I don't want to be too broad, too generalized. So I try to sum it down into the main important points where the layman can understand it, but not get a completely different view of these topics.
No, well, it's easy.
Like, I don't want them.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't want them. I don't want them to have like the incorrect generalization of things that I'm saying. So I try to be nuanced. I try to find like the middle point. I just try to be, kind of a public educator.
Yeah, have that information there for anyone who wants it, regardless of what side. So it's sort of up the middle. There's no real opinion. It's not you're saying, oh, this is definitely this and this is that. This is the information. This is what scholars agree on at the minute. This is what we have, and there is it there.
Yeah, and I give, reasons for why I think certain things. Some things, if I do actually think that they're just undeniable, or if the vast majority, not even if the vast majority of scholars believe it, but if the evidence is so strong in favor of something, I will tell you this is my opinion. But I will also point out, maybe any other opinions on the subject.
Yeah. Excuse me, sorry. No, well, that's it, is to have the information there, because that's the whole point of a teacher, is to give the information for someone to make their own choices, to make their own decisions. Whether some people agree with you or don't, you can't please fucking everybody. And some people don't like the scholars, some people have their own opinions and things like that, but for the people who is willing to learn and the willing to take the information in, it's available. It's there.
Yeah, that's why I cite my sources, because in these videos, I'm not lying to anybody. The thing is, I might be wrong, and that I'm perfectly fine with that. But if you have an issue with something I said or one of my conclusions, you can check the sources, because I cite all of them.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask, man, while we're on that topic and stuff, of the history of the whole thing, right? You would spend an awful lot of time, as you say, studying the Bible and where it came from and that there. Out of it all, the most, I would say, probably popular thing that people know of that shaped the Bible, so to speak, thanks Dan Brown, would be the Council of Nicaea and things like that there. There's obviously, like, the most recent video you did, I think it was, what, was it the 4th century? I lost count how many fucking councils you mentioned.
Yeah, so both the Council of Nicaea and the most recent video I did on the Council of Constantinople, they were both in the 4th century. The Council of Nicaea was in 325, or at least the first one was. They're more later. And the Council of Constantinople was in 381. And there's a huge history, huge theological background that needs to be understood for both of those councils. And in my videos on both of those councils, I do delve into that. But yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions on Nicaea, which is actually what prompted me to make that video in the first place.
Well, out of all them councils and back and forths and things like that, is there anything in the Christian Bible history and how it was come that you would say would be more important that is overlooked? As I say, the Council of Nicaea gets that probably because of Dan Brown and movies and things like that.
Yeah. As far as councils go, maybe the Council of Trent, which was in the 15th century, I think. I have yet to do in-depth research on that, though. But I think that one was quite important. Obviously, the Council of Nicaea is very important because it was the first ecumenical council. And then Constantinople was important because afterwards, with Theodosius, he kind of established Christianity as the state religion. So they all have very important historical significance. I'm making my way through them. I plan on making this a whole series because they're really interesting, and there's a lot of theology to understand. And even even though I'm an atheist, I think it's really interesting to understand these different theologies, because they might help with because they have a lot of different concepts about identity in general, and you might be able to find some use out of just how they divided things, how they understood things. But I definitely think that because there were so many councils, and because each of them has their own historical significance, I think they should be researched in depth and not just taken. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of misconceptions about these things. So I want to bring the actual facts to the forefront, and then tell people what, or at least as far as we can tell, what would have happened. I want to break apart those misconceptions. Because it's so easy to say, the Bible was invented at Nicaea, even though that's not even a little bit what happened. But a lot of atheists try to use that as, some big gotcha for Christianity. And the thing is, you don't need the Council of Nicaea to create the Bible to be an atheist. Like, it's not anything that atheism is hinged upon. It's not even that important. Just be honest about history, and that's good. Just be honest about that. You don't have to lie about it. You don't have to spread this bullshit. If you're misinformed, fine. But, if you really care about a subject, you should learn it more. And the fact that the Bible, I think, is the most influential, the most important piece of literature in history, arguably.
Yeah.
I think because of that status, it should be analyzed critically and honestly, and it should be understood.
No, it's definitely, as you say, man, it is, if not the most important book that's ever been written in our history, whether it's true or not. One of the people in the chat, Critical Cripple, he was asked one time why we always go over this, and it's because it's either the most important question in the world, or else it's the biggest waste of time in the world. But it is definitely up there as something that needs to be, well, not needs to be, but certain groups of people, it comes at you. You want to ask these questions, you want to go through it, and as you say, man, I can't stand that when people just pull out the atheist lines. I hate them as much as the fucking Christian scripts, and I'll call people on them. There's no problem in that, but that's the whole idea of this channel, was to originally have these discussions, and I was just sick of hearing the same flipping arguments over and over from both sides. And even in a debate format, they would break it down, and it would be even more formal and more the same thing that you've seen over and over again. So it's good to have a resource like yourself that you can, Council of Nicaea. No, hold on a minute. There's a video on that. It's handy to have.
Yeah, it's right there for you. And the thing is, hopefully, I don't think anybody should take me at my word. I don't think they should. That's why I cite my sources. But the fact that it's coming from a secular channel should mean something to people.
Yeah, given that information, and as you say, you have changed your point of view. I don't think the mythicist point of view is... No, there is an awful lot from the myths. I've had conversations with them and talked to them and watched their content and all that, and they do have points. But I think when you boil down to it, it is just a bit of a reach, a bit of a grab to say that there was literally no Jesus whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's mostly, for me, comes down to Occam's razor. It's just a lot simpler of an explanation for all the evidence that there was a historical Jesus. Obviously I don't think he was divine. I don't think he walked on water and any of that stuff, because I consider that to be, these are parts of mythological works. Now that doesn't, mythology is a weird thing, and I try to explain this to people, is that mythology isn't necessarily true or false. It's just about something written in a much different way. But even, like, you can add divine stuff to historical facts and it would still be considered mythology. Like the Babylonian exile, I think it almost definitely happened. We have, both the account in the Bible and we have Persian accounts as well. So I think the Babylonian exile happened. I think most people would agree with that. But I don't think it had anything to do with God.
Yeah, yeah, it's just history. It's people justifying it and putting their wee bits and bobs in to make things. Personally, from my point of view, I am obviously a atheist, agnostic atheist, whatever you just want to call it. And I personally think that there definitely had to have been some sort of a physical person, some sort of an actual person that started this, and possibly maybe two or three. Yeah, it was a very popular name back then, and you know, this sort of thing happened all the time. People popping up and hell coming to get you and all that. It was popular at that time, and maybe there's not necessarily a person named Jesus, but you had the one Jesus and a couple of other guys speaking this sort of thing, and it all sort of melded together. And over the course of 60, 70 years before it was written down, all these stories then came together and melded into the one person. Mythology just grows over word of mouth, Chinese whispers and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, you know, mythology grew around one person for, you know, the certain theological implications that it would ensue. I mean, I don't really hold to the multiple Jesuses thing, but you know, each gospel does present a slightly different view of the Jesus character, but it tells you more about the author than it does about Jesus.
Yeah, well, I will just bow down to you and your research, man. You would know better than me. But that's where I've landed on. You know, possibly a couple of people, whatever. I wouldn't go so far as saying I'm a mythicist. You know, I think that is it's just a bit too much to ask, to go that far and say, oh, it was all a plan made up and this sort of thing. And humans are evil, but we're not. That's a bit much to ask. Like.
Yeah, I mean, humans are definitely evil, but the thing is, the people in the past were just, I mean, they were just as honest as we are now. So yeah, you're going to have bad people, but you're also going to have a lot of good people that, you know, try to be honest about these things.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, you've got the whole thing where it grows and you start off with Mark and Matthew and all the rest of it, and more stories as it goes along, more miracles as it goes along. It does seem a wee bit myth-buildy, more so than telling a story. As time goes along, things get more exaggerated, and you know, when you're 15 and you beat up a guy and you think you're brilliant, by the time you hit 25, you've beat up 3 guys, and the story has taken its own persona, and you've told it this many times, and your friends know it, and they know it the wrong way because you've exaggerated it. And human memory changes the more times you look back. Every memory is not like a memory in the drawer. It is added to and imprinted upon from every other memory that comes to there. You know, every other memory that you have gets imprinted upon it.
Yeah, definitely. These things add up over time, and they change and they mold. But it helps us learn about the social milieus of the people writing.
Yeah, just as a shout out to the moderators, let them do whatever they want. Sal, just don't time anyone out unless there's hate speech or anything like that. Just just let them do their thing. It doesn't bother me. Let them bring their whatever they want, and just let it be. Be all right. Were you born an atheist? Oh, you are born an atheist. No, we're not going down that route. Were you raised a Christian?
I was actually raised Jewish.
Oh.
Yeah, my entire family's Jewish. I became an atheist a year before I was supposed to have my bar mitzvah. And I was like, you know, I don't really want to engage in this tradition. So I didn't.
We've got someone here actually, just as a side tangent real quick, wanted to know if you voted today in the Wisconsin primaries.
No, I did not. I mean, they weren't the primaries either way. They were, they were, you know, more for local stuff, and I had a lot of reading to do. I'm going to vote in the presidential, election, obviously. But that's in April.
Yeah. So, yeah, sorry, back to that. Raised a Jew, and just before your bar mitzvah, you decided, well, not decided, but came to the conclusion.
Yeah, and a lot of people in or at least my grandparents, they didn't like that, because even though like my grandpa, for example, he is an atheist, but he still holds to all the traditions, so he still celebrates the stuff. It's his culture, and it's fine. He can do that. It's just nothing I really wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, like we have, I've mentioned before over here, people know that my girlfriend is actually a Catholic. I would refer to her as a cultural Catholic. She actually is an atheist if you sit down and have a conversation with her, but she won't get to that stage because Irish Catholic and all that sort of thing. But she's very adamant about the traditions, and maintaining the traditions. It was a very big thing for her when she was growing up. The confirmation over here is huge. They make a big massive deal out of it, and she wanted our wee girl to go through that, so she was christened as a Catholic in the chapel, and will be confirmed when she hits 10 or 11 or whatever that, if she wants to. It's not that my girlfriend would push anything on it. We've come to the agreement that the wee girl can just grow up and decide what she wants to decide. If she wants to spend all the nights of the day listening to daddy talk shite, or go to church the odd time with mummy and granny, that it's up to her. It's whatever she wants to, like. But she is on paper as a Catholic, like. It doesn't really cause any problems, though. We don't really care over here. As you say, it's more cultural, just like your grandfather. It's just something you do. So you as your bar mitzvah, didn't go through with it then at all?
I did not. No, it was just not, because the whole thing for me, and I still hold to this position. And I'm sorry if you hear the grandfather clock in the back. I can't really do much about that. The whole thing for me is, when you're arguing that we should do something because it's tradition, it is just it's a fallacy. It's just an argument from tradition, and I don't really see any use in it for me for holding these traditions up. So I'm just not gonna engage in them. And I just learned this. I learned this today. Actually, I didn't know this before today. My girlfriend is actually she is she can marry people.
Oh, she's ordained.
Yeah, and she is a rabbi, and I had no idea that she went to some rabbinical school. Did not have any clue, and I'm like, we've known each other for years. This is something I probably should have known. Yeah, like, especially in my field.
Yeah, considering who you are and what you do, it would have been poignant to bring this up. Like, well, my girlfriend, she has admitted now, because we live in Northern Ireland, and then there's the south of Ireland, and we live in the north. Her old family's from the south, and she has admitted that the main reason she wants these gatherings is to get the family together. She is an admittance of that. It's nothing to do with the church.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and that's fine. From person to person, I'm not gonna try to stop people from doing that. It's just not for me.
Yeah, her auntie takes it very seriously. I'm not allowed to discuss religion with her auntie. That's been put down in stone. That happened once, and probably will not happen again. That got very heated. She was trying to enforce a tradition, and we've agreed on certain things. If you want to go and do this for your family, that's fine, and all the rest of it. But there's certain things when it comes to religion and the child that I put my foot down. And it's like, you're not doing that. That's just not happening. And her auntie took it the wrong way, and her auntie was like, oh, so you're trying to stop her from doing this, that, and the other? No. Long story short, after about 20 minutes, I lost the rag and told her to F off, and you will not tell me how to raise my child and all that. So yeah, I'm not allowed to talk religion with her auntie no more.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But your family, the fact that you didn't do the bar mitzvah, I heard a story. I think it was Amanda in the Daily Atheists interview the other day. She was a Catholic. When she didn't go through her confirmation, or she did go through her confirmation, but I think her granny, she didn't want to, and her granny said to her, if you don't go through it, basically we're going to disown you. Did you have that effect when when you didn't have your bar mitzvah?
No, but I think it's mostly because my parents are fairly liberal about this stuff. Like, they're still, my mom is an agnostic. My dad is, still a Jew, but he's, more liberal about it. He's just like, do whatever, man. Just so long as you're a good person, I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's mostly where I stand. So I think they kind of took the reins and talked to my grandparents about it, because they were the ones all huffing and puffing over it, and they're just like, let us raise our kid the way we're gonna raise them.
Yeah, as long as you grow up to be a decent person, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter if you're green, white, gold, or orange. It's as long as you're a half decent person, that's all that really matters. Like,
content of your character.
Yeah, it's your parents raise you, the parents make you who you are, and regardless of what you believe, you will be a decent person whether you believe in Jesus Christ or not. I don't think that religion, not to go down the whole, where does morality come from, and is it objective or subjective or anything like that, but your morality, basically, in my opinion, will come from what you were raised and how you were raised to be empathetic towards other people. Obviously it's a lot more of nurture and nature, or nature than nurture. It can be both, but yeah, I'm rambling. It's what I do.
Yeah, the way I always got around that, even when we were learning about it in, was it middle school, high school, I don't remember. The way I always got around that was by saying that nurture is natural, so it's all natural.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Over here, my mother, at one stage after my mother and father broke up, there's the whole single parent sort of idea, and kids aren't going to do well in school, and they're going to grow up to be this, that, and the other, and all because of the single parent. And my mum took a good step, and I think she did all right. I'm not a bad lad. Have you any stories or any debates or anything like that, Lawrence, that you have come across, like the crazy people out there? You don't do the debate or anything?
Like personally?
Oh, well, on the channel, in real life, or anything like that, have you ever come across anybody, well, I know there's an awful lot of fundamentalists in America. We don't get so much of them over here. But have you ever run into any that is just, you're trying to show the evidence, you're doing your studies, you've been talking to this person, and they're just like, no, you're fucking crazy?
Not so much, but they're definitely, for example, the college I go to on campus, there's plenty of religious groups, and that's fine. Although it seems, I don't know if they're doing like this good cop, bad cop kind of thing, because when there was this Christian group who had something set up, and they were, talking about their Bible studies and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I have one of those too. Let's talk about the Bible. So one of the cases in particular, I was demonstrating how the golden calf narrative in Exodus was written after the golden calf narrative in First Kings. And for anyone that's familiar with my channel, you may have seen the video I did called "The Search for the Golden Calf," where it's pretty much like a whole excursus on the narrative. But I was, showing these textual arguments, and then I was presenting archaeological evidence. One of them just denied it straight up, that there was no calf worship in Israel ever. But then the other guy was like, okay, how about you give me some reading that I can pull up? And I was like, okay, what I'm going to recommend to you are either Christian scholars or Catholic scholars, Jewish scholars, that stuff, religious scholars. Yeah. So you know that it's not just like the atheist position. So, I cited Mark S. Smith, for example. I also, and just to get them going down this scholarly route, I also recommended Michael Heiser, who I have plenty of issues with Heiser's work, but the thing is, he's way more scholarly.
So many people mentioning Heiser.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm just sorry to interrupt. So many people have been mentioning Michael Heiser to me lately, both from, a lot of Christians have been suggesting that I read some of that, but just to find that you're mentioning him as well.
Yeah. The thing is, I have plenty of disagreements with the guy, but the thing is, he takes it much more seriously than your average apologist. So I at least respect his work.
Yeah. So
I cited, these different religious scholars, these different religious authors. Because when I say religious scholar, I think religious studies. And there's a huge problem in religious studies where people like to make connections where there aren't any. And I want to stay away from that. So it's, the whole case of parallelomania. And I want to stay away from that. So I cite religious biblical scholars, I should say that, and hopefully they look into it. There's some others. There's this guy who hands out pens on campus. Actually, he's a cool guy. Actually, he's a good guy to talk to, because at least you can have an honest conversation with him. He's a creationist, but you can actually have a good conversation with the guy. He's a good guy. So I enjoy talking to him. There's also a rabbi on campus. Now this rabbi, the thing is, he knows, biblical Hebrew very well. He's trained in it his whole life, and he knows the Talmud very well, because that's something else he's trained in his whole life. But when I present ideas that, like, he doesn't agree with, they're ideas that you probably should have heard if you're studying the Bible. You don't have to agree with them, but you probably would have heard of these, like the documentary hypothesis, the supplementary hypothesis. You've probably heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Cairo Geniza. These are things you should at least know of. And the thing is, he had never heard of any of those things. And I had to be the one to tell him about the Dead Sea Scrolls, different manuscript traditions, the Cairo Geniza, and like textual variations. And he was denying it up front. And that was just some of the worst. I was so shocked that these are things that he did not know about.
Yeah,
like, you don't have to agree with it,
yeah,
but you can acknowledge that these are ideas that exist.
It's just proof that the blinkers does be on, as we would call it over here. Like the horse blinkers are on. You're just looking down that one path, and you don't look left, you don't look right, you just keep going down that path. I've mentioned before, my granny, only up until within this last year, I made a joke that, there's incest in the Bible. We're having... Not that me and my granny would have these conversations, but I'm always doing this. I even went so far as buying a 666 license plate for my car just to start the conversation in real life. And, my granny's talking. I was like, there's incest in the Bible. And she's like, no, there's not. And I went through the Lot story. And, of course, they're only told up until Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt. And it ends. It's all about compartmentalization, about what they've been told, what they're being taught. And the church knows over here, if you teach them all that, you're going to lose people. So they become a wee bit more liberal and don't teach that and just sort of leave it out. And she's 84. Didn't know that till she was fucking 84.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising, because and I found this a lot, actually. The people who go to seminary, at least in the States, they know about these different textual traditions, they know about the manuscripts, they know about textual criticism and historical criticism, and they take it very seriously. So sometimes they do end up leaving the faith, like Bart Ehrman did, like Darren Slade did, like a bunch of scholars. But the thing is, so many of them still are Christian, and that's fine. You can do that. So these things, being Christian and acknowledging the scholarship are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they would take more of a position of that over here. I find in America, it's very polarized. All one side or all the other. Over here, they do accept that. Obviously, I know Christians in real life, and they accept evolution. It's just, there's not even a fight in their mind. I've had this conversation over evolution with people. Now, there is one guy that I do know. I would call him an old Earth creationist. He does use the phrase pond scum to people. He can't wrap his head around it. But I've had a lot of conversations with this man. He would just call into work, and we would have the crack, as we call it over here. One time he did come in with a freaking picture of a baby and start rowing me over abortion. But yeah, the point I'm trying to make is, over here we don't have that confliction. You're taught evolution, you're taught religion, and they're not even put. They're not put together. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's always, because the thing about evolution is, and I always use this example because I just feel it illustrates the point. As far as quantity goes, I think there is more evidence for evolution than there is for gravity. The sheer amount of evidence we have for evolution is just astounding.
Yeah.
And actually the rabbi that I was telling you about, he also denied evolution. The moment I brought up evolution, he's like, oh, you can't prove that. And I'm like, okay, well, science is never about proof. It's about evidence and where it leads, the demonstrations, the questions. It's about same with history. It's about building models that explain reality.
Yes.
And
Predictive power.
It can be disproved. What'd you say?
Predictive power.
Yes. Predictive capability is very important.
Yeah.
And proof only exists in math and logic. So it's kind of they think that the idea that you can't prove evolution is like a gotcha. It's like, no, it isn't. Sorry, every scientist already agrees that these are things you can't prove because proof is for something else.
Yeah, whenever people come across things, it's we can what we know can be proven wrong, but what we know is not necessarily wrong. We just get a better understanding on it. It's more adding to what we already know. It's the same with, if you look at Newton and you look at Hawking, Newton's equations still work. And if you input all the information into Stephen Hawking's, you end up with, if you go down that route, you end up with Newton's equations. But it is just a better understanding of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's an expansion. Like we still use Newton's equations all the time.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about like super high speeds, you got to take into account Einstein and relativity, because it just doesn't work like that anymore. It's just an expansion.
Yeah, you're like a child when you learn with your trike, or you're learning your bicycle and you've got your training wheels on. As you move up, the training wheels come off. You then learn another skill. The way you cycled the bike before with the training wheels wasn't wrong. It's just when you take the training wheels off, you need to learn to do that and a wee bit more. You need to get your balance right. You need it, as you say, an expansion.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Just as we shout out for everyone for the chat, Johnny Spinoza, I haven't seen you here before, man. Appreciate you turning up. Kevin is in the chat. Kevin does my backing music. He's awful good for that. We've got Maya and Bill and B and all the regulars. And just as a wee shout out and give everybody heads up, I'm going to be wiping a lot of the blue. I feel like there's a sea of blue. I've been too nice with the fucking spanners. So there's going to be a few people that's going to get to keep their spanners. Don't cry when you turn up next time and have no spanner. It's just too much blue, just to let you know. I don't know, do you just do you have now started doing a Friday live chat as well as the Sunday live chat, Lawrence?
Yeah, we have Atheist Sunday School, and we have Friday Apocryphal podcast, and of course the most intelligent of viewers would understand the acronyms, and eventually we're gonna, once we're done with the Bible, we're gonna do the Quran. We couldn't come up with a good acronym for that one, but we came up with the closest possible thing. It's gonna be criticism of Quran. So that's about the closest we could get.
Well, seeing as you're good at that, we've got a man in the chat here, Critical Cripple, who is working on a wee channel, and he has got it set up for a quiz. We're gonna have like wee fun quizzes on it, and he's looking for a name for the quiz with 3 C's in it, or else something that contains critical or cripple with quiz. Something like Critical Cripple's Conundrums, something like that. Name for a quiz.
Gotcha, okay.
Anything come off the top of your head? No. He's too hard. I thought Critical Quiz was good.
I mean, Conundrum's all right. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah. No, think about that. Just was the names, because the main reason I was asking, the live streams. How do you find the people coming in, and do you, is it more fun to do the live streams, or do you prefer to do the edited content?
I mean, the live streams are definitely easier because the edited content, it takes so long. I mean, it took me months to do the Lilith video. It took me months to do the Council of Constantinople video. And it's probably going to take me months to do this next video I'm working on. It's the historicity of the patriarchs, and I'm probably going to do those in 3 parts. And that's just way more stuff. It's going to take a while. I'm thinking I'm going to do something easier to get some content out faster. But while I'm doing that, I'm still going to be researching for this historicity of the patriarchs thing. I'm probably going to do a video on Akhenaten. He's Egypt's heretic king. He turned Egypt monotheistic.
Yeah, I know all about Akhenaten. I quite like him. He was Tutankhamun's father, wasn't he?
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I went down the hall. I think I seen one thing about they were trying to find his mother, and they've got two actual what would be the word, contendees for the actual mother of Tutankhamun.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading about that. I have to go back into my my Egypt stuff, but I think I remember reading about that.
Yeah, Egypt would be my big thing. I grew up in Stargate SG-1, so that sent me down the route of the whole Egyptian ancient civilization sort of route, and I definitely will admit that I was stuck in there for a wee while. It's fun to be in there. It's enjoyable to be in there. You know, you grow up and you grow out of it, but it's damn good fun to be in there.
Yeah, Egypt stuff is really cool. So I think a video on Akhenaten would be nice, and I already have most of the sources I'm going to need for that. So it would definitely be the content that I can get out faster. It'd still be just as good, and while I'm doing that, I could still work on the much larger projects.
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to see that, man. You know, nothing I could do to help you, but yeah, definitely would look forward to that, because that's definitely more down my route. The Egyptian route is where I all came from, and hell, I can even speak a wee bit of Goa'uld. Did you have anything like that when you were growing up? Any to steal? Because I see Chris in the chat, and we're big sci-fi fans. Is there any sort of a sci-fi show that you had when you were younger that would have influenced you, or not dragged you away from religion, but helped you see other religions outside of the Jewish faith?
Not really. I was never really a sci-fi kind of person.
Well, that shoots that down.
Sorry to disappoint.
I always recommend people to watch, especially in this area, this community that we have here, is the new, well, it's not that new, but the newer version of Battlestar Galactica. It is very, very good. It is set in a sci-fi scene, but the show is very good, and there's an underlying battle between polytheism and monotheism that goes through the entire show, but where polytheism is more for the humans, and the Cylons are the ones that worship the one true God. And it's a wee subtext, sub-story, but it is very, very important and poignant, and becomes more poignant as the actual show ends.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of something that we're actually we've been working on. So once we hit, sorry to shill a little bit here.
Oh, shill, man, shill.
Once we hit $200 a month on Patreon, we will be beginning production on our show. It's going to be kind of a sitcom, more of a dramedy, I guess. It's going to be called The High Place. There are going to be a lot of biblical references, a lot of Easter eggs for people who are interested in biblical scholarship, and you're gonna have characters from all sorts of religions, and we try to match up historical timelines to see what would make the most sense. And I think it's going to be a good bit of fun. We have the story arc written out, and I think it's really good for the first season. We just haven't written the full script yet, but I think it's going to be pretty damn good once we get there.
Yeah, speaking of other shows that you did, there's one thing I wanted to ask you, man. I didn't catch the end of it because I watched it live, and me being me, falling asleep on the sofa. The seance. When you
the demon summoning.
The demon summoning, yes. I never got back to freaking watch the end of that. I'm addicted to the live, so as with the freaking algorithm and everyone else, excuse me, if you don't watch the live in 2 or 3 days, you forget about it. And I have it written down in my book to ask you about that. But how did it turn out? Did the demon turn up?
The demon did not turn up. It was such a shame. We went pretty deep into esoteric stuff. We took from an old grimoire, and we had the ritual set up in the right way, and we spent weeks making the seals, and we had to bless a knife. We did a bunch of stuff. We had to get certain kinds of candles, and we had to get kosher salt. and that was a good bit of fun. But since it was an actual demon summoning, it's not like, in the movies or in TV shows. It's not fast. It doesn't just take a couple minutes. It takes over an hour to do this, maybe like an hour, over an hour to do this.
Anything worthwhile takes time.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? We tried it. Did not work.
No, didn't work. It's probably because you didn't believe.
Yes, I've been told that actually.
Yeah. Maya just pointed that out. It doesn't work if you don't believe. One other thing I wanted to ask you, man. We're coming up on the hour, and I never got to ask you this, and I had it written down in big letters here. The pirates. Where did your love of the pirates come from?
Yeah, so this one, so up until about 4 years ago, I didn't actually watch any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but I was a big fan of the band Ailstorm, and I still am. It's a pirate metal band. They are fantastic, I think, and because when I was in Florida for work in 2016, I think, and I was listening to them a lot, and then eventually I watched the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I was like, I wonder what actual pirates were like. So right now, you can't see it, it's out of frame, but I have a bookcase filled with, it's not every book on piracy written in the past 400 years, but it's almost every book on piracy written in the past 400 years.
So if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. Once I got into it, I realized that, in retrospect, it makes perfect sense, but it's just something I never thought about, that pirates were very different depending on, where they were from and the area that they lived in. It's just so vast, and it is super interesting, I think. It's the same kind of interest people have in, the history of war. So it's like that. And it's just so interesting. Some pirates they're all thieves by definition, but some pirates were cooler than others. Some were straight up evil. And many were. The thing I really appreciate about this pirate history is that some of them are just so cunning. It's like, it's hard not to, like, even though they're bad people, it's just so hard not to love them to some degree, like how you love like an evil character. So it's I definitely don't think people should be pirates. It is a bad thing. I'm just going to say that unequivocally now.
MathPig and Lorence do not support pirates, okay?
But it's still really interesting. Like, there are some really cool pirate stories. There was this one crazy guy. And, when I say crazy, I mean this guy was nuts. There was this dude, Francois Lolonais, French pirate. There was this, he had this battle, right? And I think it was on the Spanish Main, modern day Mexico. And his enemies had, killed almost everybody in his crew, and they thought they had killed him too. But the way that he tricked them into thinking that he was dead, he saw a fallen friend, mm-hmm. and he dipped his hand in their blood and smeared it all over his face.
Yeah.
So when they saw his body, they were like, "Yep, he's dead too. We can go report it." So they took a few of the pirates hostage. They just captured them, and they were going to go execute them. And during the execution, like on that day or in that week, Lolonais showed up in the town, and people, he didn't really talk to anybody.
They knew it was him, though. He didn't turn up in disguise. They knew it was him.
Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of people thought that they had seen a ghost.
Aye.
Because they thought that they killed him. But it's like, nope, he's just some crazy guy that escaped death for a period. There's also the story of Henry Avery. Henry Avery was a Golden Age pirate. He was in Nassau, and that was like a big pirate haven at the turn of the 18th century. So, and he kind of had a role in establishing it that way. But he was escaping authorities, and he had a big crew, and he knew that the authorities were coming to get him. So he went up to each one of his crewmates individually and told them he was going someplace else. To one guy, he said, I'm going to Madagascar. Another guy, he said, I'm going to Greenland. Another guy, he said, I'm going to, Spain or Italy. So he said he gave all of his crewmates different information. So eventually when he left and, the authorities came in to go get him, it didn't matter how much they tortured, how much they questioned. It did not matter because there's no way you could have gotten a real answer.
Because everybody was
and
different.
he escaped and he died in obscurity.
Well, it's a good idea, and no Google, no facial recognition, none of that stuff back then. You can't track anybody.
Yeah.
The company that I work for actually came in today and installed a fingerprint scanner instead of a clocking machine. And a couple of the guys at work are absolutely flipping out, especially two of them of the older generation are flipping out because it's now a fingerprint scanner. They're being tracked by their fingerprint and all this here. You could get away with a wee bit more back in them days.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt.
One question I wanted to ask on the pirates as well, and then we'll end up and we'll pop over to the after show, and then we can talk more about pirates. But
sure.
A friend in the chat, Bill Ashby, mentioned the other day, because we were talking about pirates and this coming up and all, he said that pirate captains are generally voted in. Would that have been right?
Yes, that is absolutely accurate. So the pirate captains were democratically elected, because the thing is, if you have a whole bunch of people that don't like you, they will overthrow you, because it's already, you don't really have too much of a hierarchy. There's no bigger authority. You can just overthrow somebody. There's going to be mutiny. So they had to, in order to continue their exploits and their crimes, they had to be a unity, and that required democracy.
Yeah, no, not that I ever put an awful lot of thought into it, but I always assumed that the pirate leader, the captain of the ship, was the person not voted on. When you say democracy and things like that, it makes me think that they got a pirate hat and everybody wrote a name down and put their name in, and then they pulled the name out. Democracy. But I always would have assumed that it was, 70% of the crew is all like, hey, we love Jimmy Joe Bob. Get Jimmy Joe Bob as the captain, and then he just becomes the captain. Or was it more democracy, names in the hat?
Well, I don't know if it was exactly names in the hat, but there was a vote. And the thing is, everyone kind of eventually had to be on board. They don't, no pun intended. Because the thing is, they all wanted to make money, but the only way they could do that is with each other. So they had to elect captains. But the thing is, the interesting thing is the pay for pirates, in order to continue their doings, it had to be more fair than the pay in general maritime exploits. It's better than the Navy by far, because in the Navy it's like you have this bigger government to look up to, but it's not so if you're a pirate. So usually, at least in the Golden Age, you had naval captains making 16 shares to every crewmate's 1, but on pirate ships it was 2 shares for every crewmate's 1.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was way more fair. Thing is, they all wanted to make money, but that required working together.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you want to be a productive mini society, as Bill pointed out, they're basically an anarchist republic, every ship. We've got a question which I may have missed. Oh, where did it go? I think it was Old Man Dan wanted to see if you'd read a book. I've lost. Oh, there's it there. MathPig. Ask him has he read The Pirates' Pact about the relation of piracy and the colonial economy.
I have not, no.
Well, something to add to your bookshelf, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I have a whole bunch of stuff on piracy I can recommend. If someone is interested in this topic, the first place you should go is Colin Woodard's Republic of Pirates. It is so well written, so well researched. And then there's like a bunch more nitty gritty stuff. I have some books on ships and seamanship in the ancient world. For that one's more general, but it does discuss ancient pirates. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can delve into.
Yeah, if anyone wants to contact, it's pretty simple. As if you don't mind, man, it's Milwaukee Atheists at Gmail, isn't it? It's if anyone has an interest in the topic, I'm sure if you bounced across, he would throw out a list. So
Yeah, very, very straightforward. I can give you a whole bunch of good stuff to get you started.
on that topic, I've popped the link to the after party in the chat. We'll be there maybe in about 10-15 minutes after let the dog out and toilet breaks and all that there. So, Lawrence, if you want to do a wee shout out for your channel, a wee shield for your channel, and yeah, we'll round it up.
Sure. So first, thanks again for having me on. If you guys are interested in biblical history and just religious history in general, I recommend subscribing to the channel, Milwaukee Atheists. I think we do good work, and we're always trying to do more. If you feel like supporting us, you could go to our Teespring store. The links to those are in the description of all of the. I think it's just straight up on the channel and on in the descriptions of all of our live streams.
If you DM me afterwards, I'll add them all to the description here.
All right. So that's all around there, and there is also, if you want to support us for a longer period of time, there's Patreon as well. You can get lots of cool rewards. You could even be on our live streams. You can get shout outs, and you can have your name at the end of the longer videos. And if you just want to follow us for free, that's Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is just Milwaukee Atheists. It's just a page. And Twitter is at MKE Atheists. Also, if you want to help us out by giving us more sources, we do have a wish list. The link for that is also in the descriptions of the live streams. Actually, the descriptions of the live streams have the links for everything for us. You can get something off the wish list, and we will definitely use it as a source.
Yeah, there you go. So at least you know if anyone gets anything off the wish list, it'll be going to use. It's not going to be, can I have a nice green screen and gets put in the corner.
Yeah. It's not, it's all, everything on the wish list is books. All of them are books that we are going to cite, and we're going to use them productively.
Yeah, and as I said, this man will read them books. We've referenced this over and over. Bookshelf of pirate books because he found the topic interesting. The man goes into his stuff. He really does a lot of research, and I'm, thank you very much, Lawrence. As I say, I've been watching your stuff for a long time in the community. Really appreciate your brain, as Richard says, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And on that, I will say bye, and we'll run to the intro. Everybody, thanks very much for turning up. I popped a link to the after party in the chat, and we'll see you there soon enough.